Well, luckily, many of you guys don't know this, and hopefully you're going to learn this today. This shouldn't be too tough. This is our circle right here. Circles don't always happen at the origin. They don't always happen at 0, 0. In fact, this circle, instead of being here at 0, 0, is actually, its center is over here. Over here, this is the center. And we talk about how the center is actually represented by some point, and we call that point, I don't know why, but we call it HK. So H is the X coordinate, K is the Y coordinate. So this is HK is always the coordinates of wherever your center is. Okay? Then you could have some point that's on the circle itself is always going to be XY. Some point down here is going to be XY. Some point down here is also going to be XY, something like this. These are all XYs. But the one in the center is always HK. Okay, the center is always HK. What's the center always? HK. Okay. The equation of the center of a circle with a radius r, so that length is r, and the center of HK is this. All we do is we basically say it's x minus h squared plus y minus k quantity squared, and that's going to equal our radius squared. Does that kind of look like something else we've talked about in the past? It kind of looks like the Pythagorean theorem, doesn't it? Kind of. It kind of looks a little bit like the distance formula as well. Maybe a little bit, just without the square root. It's kind of the same thing. We were basically finding the distance between these 2 points is actually going to be the radius. Okay, so that's why this should look familiar. Then if we were to take the square root of this r, don't write this down, but if we were to take the square root of the r, it would actually look like this. It would be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared will equal r. And that's basically the distance formula. Yesterday we just put like a d here, and these were just x1 and y1, or x1 and x2, as opposed to x minus h. Okay, so it's the same thing, because basically you're just finding the distance between the center and any point xy on the circle. Okay, so this is our equation. What does the r stand for? The radius, and we're going to square it. We know how to square numbers, right? Okay. What's the h and the k? It's the center, right? It's the coordinates for the center. Notice it does say x minus h and y minus k. What if h was a negative number? What if h was like -2? Yeah, we would switch the sign. It would actually be like x minus -2, or x plus 2 would probably be the best way to write it. Okay? So if we were to look at some of these examples that are over here, it says, given the center and radius, write an equation of a circle. Okay? Well, what letters are our center? H and K. So that's H, that's K. If you remember the formula, which we just wrote down, is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. All I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in those values. That's all I'm going to do. It's really straightforward. So I leave the x in there. X, my h is 1, so I'll say minus 1 squared. My y is, oh, it's actually -2. So we'd write minus a -2, or just plus 2 is the best way to write that. And what's 8 squared? 64. This is the equation of my circle. Does anyone have any questions over this? Yes, sir. It's always in this order, H and then K for your center. It's always in that order, H and then K. Which one is it? Do you know what it's called? I don't know either. I have no idea. You started it yesterday. Why don't you guys try to do part B on your own? We're going to check part B in just a second. That's it. Shh, guys. I'll look through that. Where are you taking it? Cool. Hey, hopefully you tried number 2 on your own. The center is a little bit different because it's HK, but it should work about the same way. Just realize that when you have negative signs, it'll turn into pluses, so this would turn out to be x plus 3 quantity squared plus y plus 4 quantity squared. And then 10 squared is 100. How many people had that answer? Raise your hands. That's it. No mas taquitos. That's it. I hope so. I think we've been building towards this point. I think this will be pretty nice. Part C is a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more difficult. Notice our h is 0, so something else is going to happen here. We're going to actually do 2 steps for this one. This would be x minus 0 squared. This would be y minus 2 quantity squared. This is going to be the square root of 6 squared. Okay, so hold on a second. If you subtract 0 from something, do you really need to write minus 0? No? So how would this part simplify? Yeah, it would just be x squared. So make sure to write that fully simplified. This y minus 2 stays the same, so y minus 2 quantity squared. And what's the square root of 6 squared? It's just 6, so make sure to write that as just 6. Right? So that one's a little bit different. I'm sorry that I'm in your way. It's a little bit different because if you ever have a plus or minus 0, just make sure to simplify it down to just like x squared in this case. And if you ever have a square root, just make sure to square it properly. These are dealing with radicals that we've spent a lot of time with, so section 5.3. Just make sure you have that. Yes, sir. For this one, yes. For that one, no. Okay. Are we on the back side now? Yes, okay. Part number 2, it says identify the center and the radius given the equation of the circle. So we're on the back side. Hopefully you see this. This is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So here's what we're looking at. Our center is always going to be hk. So what's our h value? The opposite of what you see. So it says -4, so it's the opposite of that, so it's going to be 4. It's the opposite of what you see, so what's the k value? 3. And then this says an r squared is 49, so what does r equal? 7. Is that easy or what? Seriously? Okay. Our center. Andrew, what's our center? 13, comma, -8. It's always the opposite of what you see, so the opposite of 13 is 13. Opposite of positive 8 is -8. And what's our r value? 12. Pretty easy, right? Justin, what's my center? -9? Yeah, but it's both. You have to give me both of them. It's a point. -1. And what's my r value, Justin? That's right, 11. Great job. All right, Mitchell, part D. What's my center? 0, comma what? 4. Great job. And 169, what's the square root of 169? 13. Could you guys imagine that instead, great job, Mitchell, by the way, good job. Could you imagine instead of these being like really, see how these are all really nice whole numbers and everything right here? See those? Could you imagine them having to be something a little bit different? Like if we had, all of a sudden this equals, like 124 equals like our r squared, that we'd have to simplify that a little bit. Could you imagine having to do that so that our r would equal, say, like the square root of 124 and having to break this up into like 4 and like 31 or something like that, and that's 2 and 2. And saying that's going to equal 2 times the square root of 31. Could you guys see doing that? And you guys still remember how to do that? It's probably going to happen. I agree. It's probably going to happen. Let's see what happens here. Part 3 says, write the equation for the given circle. Okay, this might be a little bit different. It's now visual. So where's our center at? Okay, it's right at this spot right here. What coordinates are that? Okay, so here's 0, 0 right here. So this is going to be over 1, up 1. Okay, and how long is our radius? How far is it from here, say, to up here? How long is that? That's 3. And we could just basically look at the graph and say, well, we're going up 1, 2, and 3, or from 1 to 4, how far is that? That's 3. It's also going to be 3 this direction. It's also 3 this direction. It's also 3 across this way. It should be at 3 at any place, because sometimes they're easier to see in certain places. Okay? So a radius is going to be a radius all the way around every single place. Okay? If we have a center of 1, 1 and a radius of 3, can I get a volunteer to write the equation of the circle for us? This is like the front side. Brett, please. Squared plus y minus 1 squared equals r equals 3. So what's 3 squared? 9. That's perfect. Okay, just remember the equation that it's x minus the h, y minus k. Those are each squared. They're added together, and it's going to be your radius squared. Does anyone have any questions on part A? Okay, why don't you guys try part B on your own right now? Okay, so identify the center. Identify the radius. And I would substitute those into the equation. What's our, Connie, what's our radius? Or I'm sorry, what's our center? Okay, I think you said them backwards, so be careful with that. From our origin, we move, from here, we move 3 first, and then we move down 2, so it's 3, negative 2. It's always the x first and then the y. Okay? Okay, so now what I look at is I have to figure out where my radius is. I could either look here, or here, or here, or here. And the idea is from our center, I move over 1, 2, 3. My radius is 3. Those are just really easy ones to draw. That's probably why when I made this, I picked 3. So my radius is 3. So when I write this, this is just going to be x minus 3 squared from here, plus, this is y plus 2 because of there, equals, and what's 3 squared? 9. So that's my answer. Piece of cake? I think so. Okay. Let's see. There was one more thing on here. I don't remember what it says. Oh, graph the circle with a center 0, 0, and radius of 8. So this is a little more challenging. So our center is 0, 0, so we're going to plot that on there. That's pretty easy. Center 0, 0. A radius of 8 means I go 8 to the right, 8 to the left, 8 up, 8 down, 8 diagonal in every direction. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to move out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put a point there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Move there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 right there. And that'd be all right. And your circle is probably going to look pretty terrible. So what I like to do is I like to put some sort of point in the middle here as well. So I'm going to say like right about here. Oh, maybe right about there. Kind of in here-ish maybe. And kind of over here. There's just sort of to help me maybe draw my circle. And if I want, I can maybe put like another point sort of in between. Hopefully it's about 8 away. Maybe. And some of these points might be better than others. You also put a point sort of in between each one of those. And eventually, if you just put points in between each one of these, you'll eventually just have a circle. But the more points you put up here that are exactly 8 away, probably the better your circle will look. Okay? As opposed to just drawing some quick circle around, this is probably the best way to do it. And I'll just try to draw this. That doesn't look terrible. Okay? It's not too bad. What I'd like you to do is instead of just What I will see some people do is I will see some people say, okay, here's my center right here. And they'll just do this. That is not going to work. Okay? What I want you to do is I actually want you to draw your radius on here somewhere and label it as 8. And that'll really help me to know. Also label your center on here as 0, 0. If you do those two things, that'll help a lot as opposed to somebody randomly drawing this, which I could kind of guess where the center is, but look at that dot. That's ridiculous. And I have no idea what your radius is because over here you move something. You're moving different amounts each time. Okay? Take your time. Just don't scribble these up there. It should be a little bit, shouldn't be too bad. Okay. The next one. Rashad, what's our center going to be over here for this circle? -2 what? -1. That's right. -2, -1. So I will go -2 to the right. I'll go down 1. From that center, I'm going to move out how much, Rashad? Yeah, I'm going to move out 5. That's my radius. So I'll move 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is right here. I'll move 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. I'll put some points in the middle. Just help me guide. Then I'll draw my circle. I'll draw this in a different color, but it's just kind of how we do that. It's very hard for me to draw big circles. Thank you. Radius of 5, and my center is -2, -1. Okay. If your circle is too small to actually write your radius there, just maybe draw like a line to it and just write like -2, -1 if it's too small, just so that people know what's going on. I like the way you're doing that. That's a good idea, Tucker. Just to kind of do that. It should be rounded, and it shouldn't look like a square or anything like that. I just want to look at some people's circles. Some people draw really good circles. Can I see your circles on the back? Let me see how bad it is. Oh, that's terrible. That's awful. That's embarrassing. Those are pretty good. Those are pretty good circles. That one, yeah. 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 The second one looks a lot better. I think smaller ones are easier to draw. It's not bad. Those are pretty good. Those look really good from here. What is wrong with your circles?
It goes like straight.
Oh. Yeah, it looks like a flat tire or something. Well, I'm not jealous at all. Those are bad. Silas, have you ever seen a circle before in your life? Those are awful. Those are awful. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about how circles work? They work really well. Hopefully this makes sense to you. If not,